Barrels are synonymous with Donkey Kong, as one of Nintendo's top-end franchises, growing out of an arcade classic and transforming into a fan-favorite platformer with the Country series. DK has had many appearances over the years, and likewise there have been many barrels. In today's video, I'm going to talk about every single barrel there is. There might be 100 plus. We'll mark them out and let you decide. You may know some of them, but I guarantee there's some that you've never heard of before because of their obscurity. I'd love to hit 3K subscribers, so if there are 5 or more barrels brand new to you, hit that subscribe button. I'm going to start with the bread and butter, the plain vanilla, the eternal classic, the barrel. It has no markings, it has no unique coat of paint, and it has no special abilities. It is a wooden vessel that is iconic for being thrown. Donkey Kong was an arcade game where Mario famously jumped over the barrels that they aped through in order to save Pauline. This iconic imagery was recreated in 2017's Odyssey title with the New Donk City celebration. When developing the modern image of Donkey Kong with the Country series, Rareware kept barrels integral to his character, making them an item that could be picked up and thrown. They roll across the ground until meeting their target, but break upon hitting walls. Barrels are a great way to kill enemies, and are especially useful for hitting stronger or usually invincible foes. Without the classic barrel, none of these other wacky or crazy barrels would even exist. The arcade didn't just have the classic barrel, but it had a variant known as the blue barrel, which would spawn fireballs if it rolled into an oil drum. This unique feature made it more than a recolor, and is probably quite memorable to fans of the arcade classic. Everyone who's played DKC has gotta love the TNT Barrel for its explosive power. They're wooden and similar to normal barrels, but can be identified by the white painted TNT plastered on the side. They pack a punch and are great for taking out enemies, and are used in some boss fights like against Cudgel. The barrels explode the moment they touch the ground, a wall, or an enemy, and sometimes this can reveal bonus rooms hidden behind breakable walls, making these very useful. However, as enemies love to hide in barrels, sometimes dangerous. And in the racing game Barrel Blast, you can get a mega TNT barrel if you're losing, which kind of acts like a lightning bolt from Mario Kart, affecting all the other players negatively. I need to get on my Donkey Kong Land grind, because it has a barrel I've never even heard of. That is the Explosive Barrel, a barrel which looks like it has a fuse. When collected within a stage, it will destroy boulders on the overworld. This feature is pretty surprising, and is cool to learn about. You may have noticed small green lines wrapped around a few barrels in Donkey Kong Country, and those are vine barrels. These wooden barrels don't have metal straps, but are homemade in the jungle with vines. You might not have even noticed their functional differences during gameplay, but these flimsy barrels actually break when they hit the ground and don't roll across it like the normal standard barrel, making these ones actually inferior and worse in every way. Not all barrels are made of wood though, and as early as Jungle Hijinks, players are introduced to the steel keg, aka the Iron Barrel. These are more durable than the average barrel and can roll through many enemies, and they don't even break upon hitting a wall. They ricochet backwards. This ricochet mechanic is integral to DKC3, where in every level, the Kongs must kill an enemy known as Coin to take his DK coin. A steel keg is always available for the job. What's cool about these barrels is that they can be ridden as they roll through a stage. Black drums are metallic barrels that appear in a few levels of Donkey Kong Country. They functionally act like an enemy spawner, being able to create an unlimited number of certain type of enemy, among those being naughties, armies, claptraps, or slippas. They can be safely stood on and can also be destroyed if a barrel is thrown at them. What can't safely be stood on are oil drums. These metallic barrels are filled with oil and often produce flames which will burn the Kongs. These appear within Kremcock Industries of the first DKC, but their legacy goes all the way back to the arcade game, where they're also hazards to Mario. That means they appear in Mario Odyssey's New Donk City party. Being so iconic, they were also made into a type of weapon for Rabbid Cranky in Mario and Rabbids Kingdom battle. King of the Drums is Dum Drum, the 5th boss of Donkey Kong Country. Like the smaller black drums, a skull and crossbones are imprinted onto it to warn about danger. However, its eyes glow red, which suggests it is alive. It spawns enemies like the smaller drums too. If those enemies are killed, then Dum Drum will try to crush the Kongs until he fails and self-destructs in frustration. In the GBA port, however, DK has to throw TNT barrels at the boss to damage him. Now here's one you'll only know if you actually played those GBA ports. Because you can save anywhere on the GBA, Candy's old save barrel had no purpose. They gave her the new Dance Barrel, which will take you to her minigame and her dance studio. Who knew that DK could break it down? Candy just couldn't get it together because on the Game Boy Color version of the game, she had something called a spin barrel, which would take the Kongs to a unique challenge for that world in the game. DK's home is on an island, right? With this next barrel, he gets transported to the open seas and enjoys some fishing off the coast. That's right, it's the fishing barrel, a barrel with a fish hook on it. Funky Kong owns it, and hopping into it will initiate a fishing minigame on the GBA version of Donkey Kong Country. At Funky's place, you can also take advantage of the Jumbo Barrel, which resembles a plane and is named after the Jumbo Jet. Funky's flights and this barrel let you go between worlds around the open map. This feature was given the Biplane Barrel in DKC2. If you ask me, Funky's technology regressed a little bit when it came to the planes, and he started charging money for his flights. And let's add one more barrel to the list. In the animated TV show, Bluster Kong owns a similar vehicle, the Barrelcopter. One of the best things that Retro Studios brought to the series with Country Returns is the Rocket Barrel. Once hopped on, DK rides this rocket through insane levels, flying over and under obstacles and enemy attacks. This is a type of level and appears 12 times when combining Returns and Tropical Freeze together. This is an iconic gimmick in my opinion, and it has incredible music. It appeared in the massively successful Mario movie, so I don't think it's going anywhere. But did you know that another Rocket Barrel appeared years before in Dixie Kong's Double Trouble? In the level Rocket Rush, this contraption lets the Kong safely descend a dangerous cliffside. At the bottom of the level, we meet our next barrel, the Ignition Barrel, which activates the rocket and sends the player shooting upward, where they must now fly through the cliffside level and reach the top. A third type of Rocket Barrel are the many ones that make up Diddy Kong's jetpack, aptly named the Barrel Jet, or also known as the Rocketbarrel Pack. It first appeared in DK64 as a special ability for Diddy, and has since become an integral part of his character and design. It is notably his ability in Country Returns and Tropical Freeze, allowing for brief horizontal mobility after a jump. But don't get the Rocketbarrel Pack confused with the Bongo Jets from the hit racing game Donkey Kong Barrel Blast. Each racer has these Bongo Jets in their own color, but we're counting it as one type of barrel. However, K. Rool's jet is unique. If there's Bongo Jets, we gotta talk about the DK Bongos from the Donkey Konga series, as these are made of barrels, so I think we have to count them too. He even played them in Smash for a little while. I want a lightning round. We're gonna try and go through these gimmicky barrels as fast as we can. You're probably familiar with the level Stop and Go Station, which you guessed it is home to the Stop and Go barrels. These barrels are automatically set to go, giving the green light to the Rock Croc enemies to run around freely. By jumping into the barrel, the player switches them to the stop state, freezing these enemies in place. This doesn't last forever though, forcing the Kongs to run to the next barrel to stay alive. Very similar in function are the on-off barrels, exclusive to the level Loopy Lights. They are also off by default, but when jumped into, enter the on state and turn on the lights in the level. Pretty simple, but it's surprising that they haven't been in more levels throughout the series, acting as an on-off switch for various mechanics. Another barrel that functions with light is known as the Light Barrel and can only be found in Donkey Kong Land 2's Take on Glimmer's Galleon. Despite the name of the level, it has no glimmer and the lighting can only be changed by touching these barrels. DKC1 loved its gimmicks, and the last one can be seen through the fuel canister. Only appearing in one level with an auto-scroll platform that can run out of fuel, these rare barrels will give more juice to the platform, allowing you to continue progressing. They do make a return in DKC3 as fuel for the aforementioned Rocket Barrel in that game, and are painted blue, which is pretty cool. DKC2 has a few gimmicky barrels as well. Another pair of switches basically. In the level Haunted Hall, you are pursued by Cackle while on the roller coaster. There's a timer, which if it hits 0, means Cackle gets you. The Plus Barrel will add time to your life, meaning you need to make certain jumps to collect these in order to stay alive. The Minus Barrel, however, will take time away, becoming an obstacle that you have to avoid. The Check and X Barrel are just on-off switches as well. They appear on the roller coaster track and either open a gate or close a gate that is ahead, which means you either progress or die. There isn't a whole lot to say about this, they just kept making new on-off switches instead of having a universal one across the games. I believe the last of these on-off switches is aptly named the Switch Barrel, and is marked with an S. It can be marked like a regular barrel, a TNT one, or a steel keg, and represents the type that will be fired by the enemy bazooka. By jumping into the switch barrel, the player changes what the enemy will fire, which is often necessary to platform across gaps or avoid attacks. Now let's rapid fire through a specific type of barrel known as the animal barrels, barrels which transform the Kongs. The Enguarde Barrel turns you into Enguarde, which notably lets you fight the boss Barbos. The Rambi Barrel turns you into Rambi. The Rattly Barrel turns you into Rattly, which was made famous by the Rattle Battle level. The Squawks Barrel turns you into Squawks, letting you shoot eggs and fly. The Squawks Barrel turns you into Quawks, which means no eggs for you. The Squitter Barrel turns you into Squitter the Spider. Say hello to post-production Morton, because I forgot to include the Ellie Barrel, which turns you into Ellie. And no, what are you thinking? The Diddy Barrel does not turn you into Diddy Kong. This will shoot the player upwards like a barrel cannon, but it only works if you're currently Diddy. Similarly, the Dixie Barrel will shoot you up if you're currently Dixie. The Cannon's Claim bonus room has both of these barrels and makes you use the swap character mechanic to the fullest. Now it's probably time we talk about the DK Barrel. Any player loves the sight of this one, marked by the main monkey's initials and the sound of a monkey inside. In the original trilogy, this barrel will get you a second Kong, whether that be Donkey himself, Diddy, Dixie, or Kitty, depending on the game. Having a second Kong is a second hit, and is very important for some of the harder levels. In returns, the DK Barrel will get you a Diddy as a power-up with his jetpack. Tropical Freeze was highly innovative in bringing in new Kong barrel forms. Because there are so many playable Kongs, it wouldn't work with just one DK barrel, so now Diddy has his own barrel, marked with 2 blue Ds. Dixie has a barrel marked with a pink DX, and Cranky has a barrel marked with a yellow CK. When the switchboard happened, they even made a funky barrel with a purple FK, which restores funky hearts in funky mode. Similarly, letting players change Kongs is the Tag Barrel from DK64. This barrel has the faces of the DK crew spinning around on it, and once entering, the player will get to choose their Kong. DK, Diddy, Tiny, Lanky, or Chunky. The Tag Barrel is different from the other one which has the Kong faces on it. This type of barrel is called Cranky Kong's Barrel, which lets the DK crew use their special move that Cranky taught them. And Cranky supposedly created these barrels as well, giving them their name. When entering, DK becomes invincible, Diddy uses his jetpack, Lanky runs very fast, Tiny shrinks in size, and Chunky becomes big and strong. Surprisingly, the barrel with Cranky's face on it is not Cranky Kong's barrel, but the Training Barrel, which will send the player to Cranky's training area when entered. This training area in DK64 acts as the tutorial. We're familiar with DK barrels, but are you familiar with the D Barrel and the K Barrel? In Junglebeat, you access each set of kingdoms through their grouping of barrels. To spell out the whole game's title, there's also a J Barrel and a B Barrel. Also on this home screen, there's a Sun, Moon, and Settings Barrel on the menu as well. Getting into some crazy territory, Junglebeat's HUD also has a barrel that keeps track of how many bananas you get within a level. There's really no name for this, I'm calling it like a type of banana barrel, but it's on the menu, and it's actually what he carries and throws at the end of the level to count up all of the bananas you get within that to get your rewards. In Mario Super Slugger's DK's star pitch is called a barrel ball, where he legally throws a barrel at you mid-baseball game. His star swing is, you guessed it, the barrel swing. And in Mario Superstar Baseball, the barrel batter minigame has red, yellow, and blue colored barrels. Maybe this blue one is very similar to the one in the arcade, but maybe this yellow one you gotta count as something unique. In a more baseball spin-off fashion, Super Slugger's Barrel Basher minigame also has golden, red, and blue ones too. These next ones are pretty similar, so maybe don't count them as different, but in the Mario game Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, there is this skeletal Donkey Kong-like character named Bink. So we'll kind of include it as Bink is pretty cool, but he has red and blue barrels in his barrel minigame. As blue barrels go all the way back to the classic arcade game, it's actually pretty cool. I think it's finally time to talk about barrel cannons. Appearing in all the country games, these are a staple of the DK franchise. When you jump into them, these barrels can shoot you across large gaps. Some rotate, and you choose when to be fired, while others have arrows and will always shoot you in a predetermined direction. In Country Returns, some are marked with skull and crossbones, meaning the barrel is destroyed after use. Barrel cannons were somewhat referenced in Smash Brawl and Bowser's Inside Story. Blast barrels are a specific type of barrel cannon that automatically fire you once you get in it. This can be a beneficial thing, but it can also be an obstacle at times that you want to avoid. In Country Returns, there's also the type with the skull and crossbones that is a one-time use. One of these that you've probably never heard of before is the Button Barrel, appearing in Donkey Kong Land. It's a type of barrel cannon that is usually aiming in a bad direction, so you hit a button nearby which corrects its course and lets you get a good angle. Rotatable barrels are barrel cannons that give the player control over the direction they spin in. They often have a time limit, forcing you to have a few seconds to make your choice of direction before you are fired, either into an abyss or to your chosen safety. Steerable barrels are barrel cannons that, you guessed it, are steerable. Marked by a D-pad, these barrels can be moved in all 4 directions. They can't be rotated though, but don't need to be. The challenge is in moving them to a place where you can be safely shot upward before its time is over. I think this one is a pretty cool concept and could have been experimented with more. The booster barrel is a type of barrel cannon that rockets itself upward once you jump into it. It appears in DKC3 and returned in DK Jungle Climber. This is unique as most barrel cannons are stagnant. Once it gets to the height of its ascent, you are automatically shot out and have to move left or right depending on where you need to go. The barrel descends back down though, and can thankfully be reused if you need more time to think about your route. A tracker barrel is another type of barrel cannon from DKC3. This one mirrors the player's left and right movement. It shoots you upward the second you hop into it, but follows you, so you can move left and right and blast yourself continually across a large gap. There are a few barrel cannon clones in the racing game Barrel Blast. These are called launcher barrels, giving you a boost in a race. There's a spinning variant called the Spinning Launcher Barrel. There's also a yellow one, aptly named the Yellow Launcher Barrel, which will launch you a distance based on how you move the Wii Remote and affect a gauge. There is a red one called a Style Barrel, which makes you angle the Wii Remote for style points. Last of the Barrel Blast barrels is the DK Launcher Barrel, which is exclusive to one track, and I believe acts as a shortcut if timed properly. A spooky white-colored barrel cannon is either referred to as the Ghost Barrel or the Boo Barrel. They vanish and reappear every few seconds, and sometimes their ability to shoot you upwards can be beneficial or an obstacle, making their clock an important thing to note when navigating a level. Now we must talk about the lovely Star Barrel, a familiar and iconic sight to any fan of the franchise. These barrels are the checkpoints in the original trilogy, meaning you had to jump into one if you didn't want to restart at the beginning of a level after death. Because some levels in the old games were quite hard, you'd often be very happy to find one of these. They were replaced by Professor Chops and Returns. A special Star Barrel, known as a Save Barrel, which is different, appears in Candy's save point in the original DKC. In the Returns reboot, you actually end the level with a barrel. I never knew what this was called, to be honest, but according to the North American instruction booklet, it's called the Slot Machine Barrel. That adds up as it spins around and can reward you with a life, a banana coin, or the DK symbol. If you get the DK symbol, you get to beat the barrel up, and it's always a fun way to end a level. I'm slowly losing my sanity talking about all these barrels, but should probably include the end of the level target from DKC2, because you know it has a barrel on it. Jumping onto this ends the level. Everyone knows about secret warp pipes in Mario Bros, but did you know that Donkey Kong has warp barrels? These appeared in DKC2 and DKC3. In 2 they look normal, but in 3 a giant W is plastered onto it. To have some parity with that design, DKC2's GBA port added the W onto a bonus looking barrel. These barrels will take you to the end of the level that they are found in, and usually found somewhere near the beginning of a stage. But they only appear in the first 2 worlds, so no, you can't skip the hard levels at the end of the game. I just mentioned something about a bonus barrel, so let's talk about that. These are what teleport the player off the main level and into a bonus room. These small rooms offer a challenge, like collecting bananas or killing enemies, in order to receive a prize. And in DKC2 and DKC3, those bonus coins meant unlocking levels in the Lost World. Bonus barrels are pretty integral to the franchise, and reappeared in King of Swing and Jungle Climber. They also appeared in DK64, where they had a golden banana on them instead of a bee. Remember those coins from the bonus room? They're called Creme coins in DKC2, and a certain fella named Klobber really likes them. If you have 15 and hand them over, he'll let you hop into his golden barrel. This golden barrel is what teleports you to that game's Lost World. The developers kind of just made everything that needed to function into a barrel, and you know what? We're all here for it. Another golden barrel appears in Mario Kart's home circuit Barrel Temple theme, which gives rewards to the players instead of causing them to crash. Very similar to the Superstar from Mario, the Invincibility Barrel makes the Kongs immune to damage. With this invincibility, they are not hurt by enemies or hazards like brambles, and they can damage stronger enemies like Kracka. They can even swim in lava, so Phil Swift could saw their boat in half and they'd be okay. The invincibility only lasts a brief time though. The Invincibility Barrel is often called the Exclamation Barrel because it has an exclamation point on it. And don't worry, we have other punctuation covered as well. The Question Barrel is marked by a question mark and it appears in DK King of Swing. They essentially function like switches, activating doors or revealing things that you can climb on. The Krockhead Barrel is not an animal barrel. You will not turn into a Kremlin by jumping into this like Rambi or the Enguarde ones. This barrel, found in the Cranky world of DKC2, will cause Krockheads, which kind of sounds like crackhead, to appear in the water. These crocodiles become platforms which the Kongs can cross, which is a pretty unique way to traverse a swamp. Now we're going to rapidly talk about a bunch of Kremling-esque barrels which are out to hurt you. There is Klobber, who is an absolutely based little dude, which is peak enemy design because the DK franchise is all about barrels, and this man is in a barrel. He also has a yellow variant, which makes you lose bananas if they bump into you, and a gray variant, which makes you lose life balloons if they bump into you. They're similar to the equally cool Kaboom, which is a red Klobber inside a TNT barrel, meaning he explodes upon contact. Who knew the Kremlings had suicide bombers? Interestingly, these guys aren't in the enemy roll call of the SNES version credits. Unfortunately, Klobber was replaced by the much less based Knocka in DKC3. There was no Kaboom equivalent in the SNES version, but in the GBA port of DKC3, there is a little dude named Kracka, which is an absolutely funny name by the way, who appears on a one-off exclusive level of the GBA port, making Kracka one rare barrel. Don't worry though, there was always enough TNT to go around, for the SNES version did have Klasp, I guess a type of Kracka or Kaboom who likes to grab onto and hold onto rope. They'd shimmy along horizontal ropes and be an obstacle while the Kongs swing along. There's also a purple guy in a barrel named Kuchuka. These guys are hiding bombs inside of their barrel because their arm will peek out and begin chucking them at you. This constant chucking of bombs gives them their name. I find the DKC3 barrel dudes to be less cool than Klobber's family overall. They also made a barrel a boss, funniest thing I've ever seen. In the first world of DKC3, Lake Orangutanga, you enter a barn and fight this big barrel named Belcha. He will hop forward and try to knock you off an edge. He also spits small barrels, who knew, which you can throw into his mouth, causing him to burp and fly backward into his own hole. So there are a lot of barrels out to get you, but did you know that there are also barrels out to protect you? The Shield Barrel will defend the Kongs from acorns thrown by Minkies, evil monkeys found in DKC3. The barrels are stationary, but can also move up or down on a rope to shield you. Who watched the Donkey Kong Country animated show? If you did, you may be one of the only few to recognize the Trigger Barrel. This was outside of Cranky's cabin, and it triggered traps, giving it its name. The only thing I really remember about the TV show is K. Rool's amazing voice and Leo Luster. We're not done with spin-offs just yet because Barrel Blast is very similar to Mario Kart, so there are items that you can get, and one of them is called the Backwards Barrel. You throw it and it becomes an obstacle on the track. I'm not going to talk about all the Mario barrels though, even though Sunshine has the Water Barrel. But Mario Kart Tour, there is the Banana Barrel, which is the special item of Diddy Kong and Funky Kong, and the Light Green Me racing suit. It shoots out a bunch of bananas all over the track. So that one's pretty well known because it's a Mario Kart Tour, right? But no one has talked about this other Banana Barrel. It wasn't listed on any of the wikis that I could find, and I had to deep dive to find it. In DK64's final boss fight against K. Rool, during Lanky Kong's section of the fight, there are barrels marked with a banana that spawn in, and it has to be thrown in the middle of the arena to cause a banana peel for K. Rool to trip on. How could this one be forgotten? Back to Mario Kart real quick. In Mario Kart Double Dash for the Nintendo GameCube, Diddy Kong's signature kart was the Barrel Train, which is since returned in Mario Kart 7 and in Tour. I guess he took after Funky in turning barrels into vehicles. I didn't even want to include this last one because it's just a normal barrel going down a waterfall, but I did find that it has a unique sprite and it has a wiki page, so I guess it's its own unique thing. Meet the Tumbling Barrel, which acts as an environmental platforming platform against a waterfall. That is every single barrel that I could find after doing a plethora of research. There are actually a lot more than I expected, and it makes me hope for some silly or goofy ones in the future. If I missed any barrels at all, let me know. And if you took a shot of alcohol every single time I said barrel in this video, then you're dead. If you stuck with me, let me know which barrel is your favorite, and I'll see you all next time.